Here we have my Traxxas Slash 4x4, and here's my friend's two-wheel drive Traxxas Slash. These trucks both have the Traxxas VXL power system in them, so this will be a pretty interesting comparison because they both have the same levels of power, but the only difference is two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. These trucks are also both lowered right now. If you want to see a video about how we actually lowered them, you can click up in the corner right here for that video, or I'll put a link to that video in the description as well if you want to check that out after this video, of course. But anyways, let's get to some of the similarities and difference between these two trucks. Alrighty, so with the bodies off, you can see the different layouts here. Obviously with the 4x4 Slash, you got the motor on the actual chassis, and then everything else is kind of, moved around that. And then on the two-wheel drive, the motor is back here, just kind of sitting on the back axle there. And this chassis is also a low center of gravity conversion. The chassis on the 4x4 is just the stock one that comes on it, so that's why it looks a little bit different. We also do have both of the bumpers removed on both of these trucks right now because we lowered it. Like I said earlier, we just took those off to kind of complete the look, make it look a bit more on-roady. You can also see that these two trucks are pretty much the exact same size. The chassis are slightly different sizes, but also the battery placement and the two-wheel drive is right in the center, and it can be kind of sunk down into the chassis. You can kind of see that there because there's no center drive shaft running through there, whereas on the 4x4 there is a center drive shaft going straight through the middle there. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. So as you can see, there's not really that many differences in the whole layout of the truck. There's a couple of big differences, but not too many little changes or anything like that. Of course, it's all the modifications on these trucks, all the upgraded parts and whatnot. It's kind of hard to see an exact comparison between these two because they're not stock, obviously, and this one has a whole different chassis, but it's the same basic layout. Nothing's been changed around too much. The main differences in these trucks are definitely going to be how they drive. So now that we've seen a couple of the differences of these trucks, we're going to go take them outside and see how differently they drive. Alright, so now we're outside. It's a little bit rainy and wet out here right now, so this will be a good test of the traction. We're going to keep TSM or Traxxas Stability Management off for this entire video on both trucks, just so it's a nice even comparison. So the first thing we're going to do is just a launch, just a full throttle, just launch as fast as we can with no steering input and see what happens. Alright, we're going to do the same thing, but put both of the trucks up next to each other, just to launch, no steering input whatsoever, and try not to hit ourselves. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, next we're going to test their handling capabilities. Starting with four-wheel drive, we're just going to see how fast we can take this turn right here. Oh.
Because technically it has to be for everyone.
Alright, now two-wheel drive. So the biggest difference we're noticing when turning is basically just how well you can correct it if it starts to slide. The four-wheel drive is just much easier for that. The two-wheel drive, once it kind of starts to slide, it's just kind of hopeless. You're just kind of done. But with the four-wheel drive, it kind of breaks away from traction much smoother, and it's a lot easier to catch and kind of control into almost a drift, I guess. So that's the biggest difference there. Now we're going to test the most important thing when it comes to RC cars, and that is how much fun you can have with it. Unfortunately, since it's so rainy out, we don't really have any good dirt or dust to try these out in. So maybe we'll have to do this again another day, when it's dry, or next year in the summer or something like that, when we have some better conditions and when the trucks are back to their normal stance and not super lowered like they are right now. But for now, we do have a very slippery, wet driveway to drift around on. So let's do some drifting. So both of these trucks are a ton of fun. I think the four-wheel drive is a bit easier to drift just because you can control it a bit more, but the two-wheel drive might be better for drifting once you get the hang of it for tighter spaces and things like this. Also on my truck, the four-wheel drive here, I just rotated the tires. So these ones here, as you can see, they're getting a bit bald right there. Those were on the rears. I just rotated them before we came out here. So the tires that will get a lot more traction on the rear right now. So it's a little bit more difficult to throw the back end out on that. And obviously it's a lot more wet than I'm used to driving on. And same for the two-wheel drive here. Also, the tires on the two-wheel drive Slash are pretty much bald right now. So better tires will definitely have an effect on how that performs as well. So both of these trucks are an absolute blast. Obviously the price point could also be a bit of a decision maker for you if you're looking to buy one of these trucks. But I highly recommend both of these. And of course, you don't have to go with the VXL versions of these trucks. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, you can get the brushed four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive versions of these trucks. I'll put a link in the description of this video to where you can find the brushed and brushless versions of both the four-wheel drive and the two-wheel drive. If you'd like to see a full review video on the 4x4 Traxxas Slash, you can click right up here for that video. And if you want to see just more videos about these Slashes in general, you can click right here for a full playlist about those, and I will see you over there.